The neon signs of Neo-Kyoto buzzed and flickered, casting a synthetic glow on the rain-slicked streets. Arlo Kepler, a journalist with a penchant for conspiracy theories and a healthy dose of cynicism, navigated the crowded sidewalks, his trench coat pulled tight against the chill wind. He clutched a datapad containing the information that had consumed his waking hours for the past several weeks. Anomalous energy readings emanating from a seemingly abandoned research facility on the outskirts of the city. Arlo had always been an outsider, a self-proclaimed truth-seeker in a world content with manufactured realities. He'd cut his teeth on local scandals and corporate cover-ups. But this was something different, something bigger. The energy spikes defied conventional physics, fluctuating wildly and emitting a resonance that felt disturbingly unnatural. He reached the address, a dilapidated industrial park swallowed by the city's urban sprawl. Rusting metal fences surrounded the perimeter, and the air hummed heavy with the scent of decay. Arlo slipped through a hole in the fence, his heart pounding with a mixture of anticipation and dread. The research facility loomed before him, a concrete monolith scarred by time and neglect. Broken windows stared blankly into the night, and the only sound was the rhythmic dripping of water. Arlo pulled out his trusty flashlight, its beam cutting through the oppressive darkness. Inside, the facility was a chaotic mess of abandoned equipment and decaying infrastructure. Cables snaked across the floor, and dust-covered consoles lay in disarray. Arlo moved cautiously, his senses on high alert. He wasn't alone. He could feel it. He followed the energy readings on his datapad, which led him deeper into the facility, down a narrow corridor lined with storage rooms. The air grew colder, and a faint humming filled his ears. He reached a heavy steel door, sealed shut with a complex locking mechanism. The datapad indicated that the energy source was located behind this door. Arlo examined the locking mechanism, a series of intricate dials and switches. He wasn't a technician, but he had a knack for puzzles. He spent the next hour manipulating the dials, guided by intuition and a process of elimination. Finally, with a satisfying click, the door swung open. Beyond the door lay a vast chamber, bathed in an eerie green glow. In the center of the chamber stood a massive, obsidian-like structure, pulsating with energy. It was unlike anything Arlo had ever seen, a geometric anomaly that seemed to defy the laws of nature. The humming intensified, vibrating through his body. As Arlo approached the structure, a holographic projection flickered to life above it. A towering figure materialized, its features sharp and alien. It wore ornate armor and emanated an aura of absolute authority. "People of Earth," the figure boomed, its voice echoing through the chamber. "We are the Vorlon Imperium. Your planet has been deemed of strategic interest to our empire. You will surrender your sovereignty immediately and submit to our rule. Resistance is futile." Arlo stared in disbelief. This couldn't be happening. He was just a journalist, not a soldier or a diplomat. But he was the only one here, the only witness to this extraterrestrial declaration of war. He fumbled for his camera, his hands shaking. He had to document this, to show the world what was coming. But as he raised the camera, the holographic figure turned its gaze towards him. "You," it said, its voice laced with menace, "you will be silent." A beam of energy shot out from the figure, striking Arlo's camera and shattering it into pieces. He stumbled backward, his heart pounding in his chest. He was outmatched, outgunned, and completely alone. He turned and fled, scrambling back through the facility. The image of the alien figure seared into his mind. He burst out of the building and into the night, gasping for breath. He had to warn the world, but who would believe him? He was just Arlo Kepler, the conspiracy theorist. As he ran, he noticed something strange in the sky. A fleet of massive, obsidian-colored warships had emerged from the clouds, blotting out the stars. The Vorlon Imperium had arrived. Earth's nightmare had begun. The obsidian ships hung silently, casting long, ominous shadows across the city. People stopped, stared, and whispered, their faces etched with fear. Arlo knew that his life had changed forever. He was no longer just a journalist. He was a witness to the end of the world. And he had a story to tell, a story that could save humanity. If only someone would listen. He had to find someone, anyone, who would believe him, who would help him fight back against the Vorlon Imperium. He thought of his old friend, Elias Thorne, a former military intelligence officer who had always been skeptical of Arlo's theories, but had a deep respect for his tenacity. Elias was the only person he knew who might take him seriously, who might have the resources and the connections to do something about this. He pulled out his phone and dialed Elias's number, praying that he would answer. The phone rang, and Arlo's anxiety grew with each passing second. Finally, Elias picked up. "Elias, it's Arlo," he said, his voice trembling. "You're not going to believe this." He poured out the story, his words tumbling over each other in his haste. Elias listened in silence, his skepticism palpable. But Arlo could hear a flicker of interest in his voice as he described the obsidian structure and the holographic figure. "Okay, Arlo," Elias said finally, "I'll meet you. But if this is another one of your wild goose chases, just meet me," Arlo pleaded. "Please, this is real, Elias. This is really happening." They agreed to meet at a secluded diner on the outskirts of the city. Arlo hung up the phone, feeling a sliver of hope. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this fight. But as he looked up at the obsidian warships hanging in the sky, he knew that the odds were stacked against them. The Vorlon Imperium was a force unlike anything Earth had ever faced, and the battle for humanity's survival had just begun. He knew he had a difficult road ahead. The doubt was crippling, but the need to fight pushed him forward. The emergency transmission had been sent, a desperate plea launched into the void. But the waiting was agonizing. Hours bowled into days within the confines of the HFY research station. Lin Mai found herself staring out at the stark Martian landscape, her mind a whirlwind of possibilities and fears. Had the message gotten through? Had it been intercepted? And even if Earth received it, would they have the resources and the will to act on the information? Doubt gnawed at her. She was a scientist, not a soldier or a politician. She had dedicated her life to understanding the universe, not fighting wars. But the Vorlon Imperium had thrust her into a role she never asked for, a role that could determine the fate of humanity. Then Carter, ever the pragmatist, tried to keep her spirits up. "We did what we could, Lin," he said, patting her on the shoulder. "Now we have to trust that Earth will do its part." But Lin couldn't shake the feeling that they were alone, isolated on a distant planet, facing an insurmountable enemy. The Vorlon ships still loomed in orbit, their presence a constant reminder of the impending doom. The feeling of helplessness was almost overwhelming. Jen, despite his youth, displayed a remarkable resilience. He continued to monitor the Vorlon transmissions, searching for any weakness, any vulnerability that they could exploit. He was a master of code, a digital warrior determined to fight back with the only weapons he possessed. A glitch in the Matrix. One day, while analyzing the Vorlon communication network, Jen noticed a strange anomaly, a recurring glitch in their data streams. It was subtle, almost imperceptible, but Jen's keen eye caught it. "Lin, I think I've found something," he said, his voice filled with excitement. "The Vorlon communication system is not as impenetrable as we thought. There's a weakness, a vulnerability in their encryption protocol." Lin rushed to John's console, her heart pounding with anticipation. She examined the data streams, trying to understand the nature of the glitch. It was complex, involving a series of mathematical equations that seemed to defy logic. "What is it?" Lin asked. "What does it mean?" "I'm not sure yet," Jan replied. "But I think it's a backdoor, a hidden entry point into their communication network. If we can crack the code, we can potentially eavesdrop on their conversations, learn their strategies, and maybe even disrupt their operations." Lin knew that this was a long shot, a desperate gamble, But it was the only lead they had. "Do it, Jian," she said. "Dedicate all available resources to cracking the code. This could be our chance to turn the tide." Jian and his team worked tirelessly, day and night, fueled by coffee and adrenaline. They pored over the Vorlon data streams, searching for patterns, trying to unravel the complex equations. The task was daunting, almost impossible, but they refused to give up. Echoes of hope. Days turned into weeks, and the pressure mounted. The Vorlon ships remained in orbit, their presence a constant threat. Lin began to lose hope, wondering if they were simply wasting their time. Then, one morning, Jian let out a shout of triumph. "I've done it," he exclaimed. "I've cracked the code. I can access the Vorlon communication network." Lin rushed to John's console, her heart filled with a mixture of disbelief and elation. She watched as Jian navigated through the Vorlon data streams, displaying their conversations, their plans, their secrets. "What are they saying?" Lin asked, her voice trembling. "They're discussing their next move," Jian replied. "They're planning to deploy ground forces on Earth, to begin the subjugation process." Lin's blood ran cold. The invasion was imminent. They had to warn Earth, to give them time to prepare. "Can we send a message?" Lin asked. "Can we use their communication network to warn Earth?" Jian shook his head. "It's too risky," he said. "They would detect us immediately. We need a more subtle approach." A desperate plea. Lin knew that they were running out of time. She had to find a way to warn Earth, to give them a fighting chance. She looked at Jian, her mind racing. "Jian," she said, "can you create a diversion, a false signal that will distract the Vorlons, even for a few minutes?" Jian nodded. "I can try it," he said. "But it's going to be difficult. They're not stupid." "I know," Lin replied. "But we have to try. It's our only chance." Jian began to work, creating a complex series of false signals designed to mimic a Vorlon distress call. The plan was risky, almost suicidal, but it was the only option they had. As Jian prepared the diversion, Lin looked out at the Martian landscape, her heart filled with a mixture of fear and hope. She didn't know what the future held, but she knew that they had to fight. Humanity's survival depended on it. The red dust swirled outside, carrying their hopes and fears into the vast expanse of the universe. The clock was ticking. Ground forces from the Vorlon Imperium were preparing to deploy to Earth. The information, gleaned from John's daring intrusion into their communication network, was stark and terrifying. Humanity stood on the brink of subjugation, and Lin Mei's team on Mars held a fragile thread of hope. Jian worked feverishly, crafting a false distress signal to lure the Vorlons away from Earth. It was a gamble, a high-stakes game of deception against a technologically superior foe. He knew that any mistake could expose their plan and seal their fate. "Almost ready," Jian announced, sweat beading on his forehead. "The signal is encrypted with Vorlon command codes. It should buy us some time." Lin watched him, her face etched with worry. She knew the risks involved, but they had no other choice. "Do it, Jian," she said. "Let's hope they take the bait." Jian activated the false signal, sending it hurtling through space. The team held their breath, waiting for the Vorlon response. Minutes stretched into an eternity, the silence broken only by the hum of the station's equipment. Then, a flicker of hope. The Vorlon ships began to stir. Their energy signatures shifted, indicating a change in course. One by one, the massive warships detached from their geosynchronous orbit and began moving away from Earth, drawn towards the source of the false distress signal. "It's working," Ben exclaimed, his voice filled with relief. "They're taking the bait." A race against time. Lin knew that this was just a temporary reprieve. The Vorlons were cunning and ruthless, and they would eventually realize the deception. They had to use this time wisely, to warn Earth and prepare for the inevitable invasion. "We need to send a message to Earth," Lin said. "A detailed report on the Vorlon weaknesses, their strategies, and the location of the wormhole network." But communication with Earth was still a problem. The Vorlon blockade was still in effect, and any attempt to transmit a signal would be risky. "I have an idea," Jan said. "We can use the Vorlon communication network to send a message disguised as a routine data transfer. It's risky, but it might work." Lynn hesitated. It was a dangerous plan, but it was their only option. "Do it, Jan," she said. "But be careful. We can't afford to get caught." Jan began to work, crafting a message that contained all the vital information about the Vorlons. He encrypted the message with a complex code, disguising it as a routine data transfer between Vorlon ships. As Jan worked, Lynn thought of the people on Earth, unaware of the impending danger. She imagined their lives, their hopes, their dreams. She knew that they were fighting for their survival, for the future of humanity. A message in the dark. Finally, the message was ready. Jan prepared to transmit it, his fingers trembling on the keyboard. "Here we go," he said, taking a deep breath. "Wish me luck." He activated the transmission, sending the message hurtling through the Vorlon communication network. The team watched in silence, their hearts pounding with anticipation. The message went through. It reached Earth, undetected by the Vorlon sensors. Humanity had been warned. But their victory was short-lived. The Vorlons soon realized the deception. Their ships turned back towards Earth, their weapons charged and ready. The invasion was coming. But this time, humanity would be ready. They would fight back with all their might, fueled by ingenuity, resilience, and an unwavering determination to survive. The flicker of deception had ignited a spark of hope, a spark that could save the world. Before anything worse happened, they needed to get off Mars. While their help was appreciated, remaining meant certain death for the team. The Vorlons would not show mercy once they realized they had been tricked. Sacrifices had to be made, but this was a fight for humanity's survival. Lynn had already planned their escape. A small, outdated shuttle remained from the original Era's mission. It was a relic, but still capable of reaching a secret escape pod in orbit around Mars. From there, they could reach the wormhole Lynn believed could turn the tide. It was a long shot, but it was humanity's only hope. The warning had reached Earth. The Vorlon deception was revealed. Now, the planet prepared for war. Cities transformed into fortresses, space stations armed themselves, and humanity braced for the storm. But defense alone wouldn't be enough. Lin May's message also contained the key to a potential offensive: the wormhole network. On Earth, the message was received by General Marcus Thorne, a hardened veteran known for his strategic brilliance and unwavering resolve. Thorne understood the gravity of the situation. The Vorlons possessed superior technology and overwhelming force. Humanity's only hope lay in exploiting their weaknesses and finding allies. The wormhole network offered both. "We need to find a way to access this network," Thorne declared to his assembled staff. "It's our only chance to level the playing field." Scientists and engineers worked around the clock, studying the data sent by Lin May. The wormhole network was ancient, built by a civilization lost to time. Its technology was unlike anything they had ever seen. "The wormholes are unstable," Dr. Anya Sharma, the lead scientist on the project, reported. "They require a precise alignment of energy fields to remain open. We need to find a way to stabilize them." Time was running out. The Vorlon fleet was approaching Earth, their ships bristling with weapons. Thorne knew that they had to act fast. The legacy of the pioneers. He remembered a forgotten project, a secret initiative from decades past. Project Pathfinder, it was called, a program dedicated to exploring unconventional methods of space travel. The project had been shelved due to lack of funding and technological limitations. But now, it might hold the key to humanity's survival. "Reactivate Project Pathfinder," Thorne ordered. "Bring in anyone who worked on it. Anyone who knows anything about it. We need to find a way to stabilize those wormholes." The call went out, and scientists and engineers from around the world responded. They gathered in a hidden underground facility, determined to unlock the secrets of the wormhole network. Among them was Professor Elias Vance, an eccentric physicist who had been the driving force behind Project Pathfinder. Vance was a visionary, a dreamer who believed that anything was possible. He had spent his life studying the mysteries of space-time, and he was convinced that the wormhole network was the key to unlocking humanity's potential. The wormholes are alive, Vance explained to the team. They respond to energy, to intention. We need to find a way to communicate with them, to understand their language. A bridge between worlds. Vance developed a device, a complex array of sensors and emitters, designed to resonate with the energy fields of the wormholes. The device was untested, unproven, but it was their only hope. As the Vorlon fleet drew closer, the team prepared to activate the device. The tension in the underground facility was palpable. The fate of humanity rested on their shoulders. Vance activated the device, and the room filled with a strange energy. The wormholes shimmered and pulsed, responding to the device's energy. A connection was made. "I see it," Vance exclaimed, his eyes wide with wonder. "I see the network. It's vast, interconnected. It leads to countless worlds." He stabilized the wormhole. A swirling vortex of energy opened before them, a gateway to the unknown. Thorn stepped forward, his face grim but determined. "Prepare the fleet," he ordered. "We're going through." Humanity was about to enter a new era, an era of exploration, of discovery, of war. The legacy of the pioneers, the dreamers, the scientists, had opened a door to the stars, and they would step through, ready to face whatever awaited them. Before making that leap, Thorn sent one last message to the Vorlon fleet, a simple declaration of defiance. "We will not surrender. We will not be broken. Humanity will endure." The fate of the galaxy was about to be decided.